Okay, so here we are on the brand new KTM 390. This is going to be a completely honest review of this bike. Can't drift because I got no power. I'm in full throttle right now, and then it takes a few seconds to wake up. It's like she's choked right down. Yeah, it's pretty lame, I'm not gonna lie. Hit my face on the guillotine. Hate to sound negative here, guys, but just being honest. Brutally honest. Really gotta rev this thing to get it to do anything. But I'm gonna not sugarcoat it, say that right now it's feeling like a Uber Eats delivery guy bike.
Alrighty, folks, this is Laurie from Outback Motor Tech, and I'm here with Sam King from Sam King.
From Ride the Vibe and Sam King's Dirt School.
There you go. So this guy's a pro, I'm not a pro. We've spent some time on this 2025 KTM 390 Adventure R, and we're gonna dissect it. So from my perspective, I'm not a pro racer, never raced in my life, versus Sam. What kind of races do you do still?
A lot of enduro cross, or I shouldn't say a lot, but that was my most recent race. Won the Red Bull Enduro Cross in Calgary this past winter. Getting more into doing a lot of schools, teaching people, and stunt shows. So a lot of trials experience, off-road, hard enduro style riding.
I don't have none of that. Anyhow.
Okay, so here we are on the brand new KTM 390. To be honest with you, it's my first ride on it, straight out of the box. Hasn't got any adjustments made, no brake adjustments, no clutch adjustments, no suspension adjustments, stock tires. Haven't even checked tire pressure. This is going to be a completely honest review of this bike because I was really excited to try this thing. I think it's a great idea. A nice small motorcycle that's very capable off-road. And I'll tell you right now, I'm having fun on this nice flowy single track. Going downhill. Not really looking for power here. The bike is handling quite well. I like the foot peg position. I feel like I have nice high foot peg clearance compared to some of the other bikes that we've been testing at Outback Motor Tech. But there's a couple things that I'm going to start to talk about here that I'm really not a fan of on this bike, but each to their own. One of the things that maybe you can tell from the camera angle here is this thing is right in my face. But look at this beautiful British Columbia. Look at this lake. Unreal. Anyways, let's get back to business. I'm actually enjoying this motorcycle right now. Confidence to charge into corners even with these shitty tires. I will tell you, suspension's bottoming out just on these little water ruts here. Especially in the rear, it's very soft right now. Feels like it has really nice travel, but it just blows straight through the shock. Straight through the stroke, I should say. I still have pretty much street slicks on this thing. Front end's washing out everywhere. The thing I will talk about right now is this cockpit. It feels very cramped. I like the foot position because they're up nice and high. It feels like they're quite far forwards, maybe? Maybe not too bad, but I think the real issue is these handlebars are really far back. Not necessarily the roll angle of the bars, but the actual mount in the triple clamp. It's on the middle setting right now. It looks like there's 3 adjustments of where you can have that top triple clamp bar mount. And I definitely would like to move these bars forwards just to open myself up a little bit. So one of the first things I noticed when I got on this bike is just how bad it flames out everywhere. If I'm not slipping the clutch on this bike, like I got the clutch all the way in, it's fully disengaged the engine. But if I'm not keeping that throttle accelerated even when I'm going slow, it just wants to flame out. Good news is I don't think it would be a huge problem. You could probably do like a flywheel weight, maybe a different map to try to keep that idle up a little bit. Let's go uphill here. So I'm in second gear. First thing you'll see is this thing's, especially as I'm going uphill, and I bring myself forwards, this thing's actually hitting my helmet right now. And if I was to crash, that thing's like a guillotine. And I'm not even going up a steep hill. Whoa, that rear shock just completely bottomed out on a tiny little bump. And again. My wheels are just falling straight into these ruts right now, and that's got a lot to do with these tires, I bet. Minor details, everyone's going to change their tires. Okay, so right now I'm full throttle, and it's just barely getting itself out of the hole. I'm only in third gear, and that was not a very steep hill. So, right off the bat, I would like to see a little bit more bottom end out of this bike. Can't drift because I got no power. I'm in full throttle right now, and then it takes a few seconds to wake up. It's like she's choked right down. And guys, just remember, it's a completely stock motorcycle, so yeah, it's pretty lame, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, put her back in a second, bounce up this bank. Let's try a little wheelie here, see what it does. Okay, well I popped it up with the clutch, but as soon as I tried to use that throttle to hold the front wheel up, it just fell back into that hole, fell on its face. Once you get this thing moving at speeds, it feels like a nice motorcycle. That it's trying to get it to go is the problem. I can feel every little bump here because the suspension is so far low and set into the stroke that just a little root or a rock and it bottoms out. A keener, you're probably going to go and get your own suspension done anyways. So not a huge deal on that side of things. It would be nice to see a little bit better suspension out of the box, but right now I'm full throttle in second gear. And full throttle again, and it's barely waking itself up. It's not even that it doesn't have power, it doesn't have torque right now. Nice little jump to a complete bottom out. There's my boss Laurie from Outback Motor Tech. He's a great guy. Lets me thrash his motorcycles. Hit my face on the guillotine. Hate to sound negative here, guys, but just being honest. Brutally honest. Kind of sounds like a moped, little postie bike. You know, sometimes when you evaluate these motorcycles, you got to kind of take into consideration of what they're made for. I was under the impression that this would be a very, very capable off-road adventure bike, but I'm going to not sugarcoat it, say that right now it's feeling like a Uber Eats delivery guy bike. Maybe if you want some fresh vindaloo, maybe the guy is going to deliver it. Maybe he's going to show up on one of these. Then you can ask him if you can take it for a ride. Let's take this thing off-road here and see if we can climb over some logs or something cool. Okay, so when you stab the clutch, the power's there. Don't want to scratch Laurie's brand new bike. That's full throttle right now. Slipping the clutch in first gear. It's just got nothing. Actually feels like the clutch is already getting burned out. Really got to rev this thing to get it to do anything. The nice thing is that it is a small bike, relatively light for an adventure bike, and I like that the fork externals, the actual diameter, is quite large, almost like what you'd see in a dirt bike, but it's just not, it's not sprung or valved correctly for, there it is flaming out again. That would be a little bit trickier to do on the Africa Twin or the V-Strom. Oh man, see, this is where I'm really nervous about this thing. Every time I go over the log, the front end comes up and wants to guillotine me. Pretty good at doing the logs, I would say. It just feels a little bit like gutless is all I can describe it as. Once you get it up in the revs, it actually starts to pick up and move along quite nicely. Right now, power curve is there and I'm on the edge of it. I don't have a lot of room left to accelerate harder, but at least the power's there. Where right now I'm full throttle and she's completely lame. Woo-hoo! Nearly died there. Had to split the gap between Laurie and that stump. It's definitely a little bit sketchy riding it right now with that soft suspension. Kind of bucks you wherever she wants to go when you land. I think this is a capable bike, but it needs some work. We've got to waken this thing up. Maybe an ECU flash, maybe a different exhaust, maybe some better suspension, different bar setup, get this bar mount moved forwards. Souvenirs.
So let's talk about the bike itself. Let's go ahead with the ergonomics. So ergonomics wise, I'm a tad bit shorter than this guy. I was standing up on the crown. Like we have like 10, 12, 14 centimeters, whatever, 3, 4 inches between the two of us. So for me, who is like 172 centimeters or 5.78, whatever that is in freedom unit. This bike is so perfect for me, for my size anyway. I don't feel so crammed on the bike. However,
I feel very cramped. My handlebars and my feet position are very close together. So for me, I would like to open that up a little bit.
Now there are some ways to make adjustments, at least to the handlebar seams, because you said you didn't like the handlebars position.
That's right. There's 3 positions where you can put your actual bar mount on the top of the triple clamp. Right now it's in the middle position. So for me, if I was going to spend more time on this bike, I would move my bar mount further forwards to the most forward position.
For me, the handlebar was in a pretty good position. I would just adjust the angle a little bit because it felt like a chopper at times. Now, foot pegs, how did you like the foot pegs position?
I really like the height of them. Feels like you've got a lot of ground clearance, especially when you are leaning the bike over in corners. I found on some of the other adventure bikes that are a little bit lower to the ground, I'm catching my foot pegs on a lot of rocks and stumps and roots. So having a little bit higher foot peg position, I really like.
All right, now let's move forward with the suspension. The suspension for me, again, I'm a fair bit lighter than you are as well, and I don't ride as aggressively as you do. For me, the suspension is great. I think for the adventure riders out there who just want to have a good, a good time out there, not pushing it too hard, even with some luggage, the suspension is pretty good for a cheapish bike. Can we call it cheapish or just
10,000 Canadian out the door?
just below?
Yeah, that's pretty dang cheap, I would say.
So for adventure riding, light off-road riding, but when you start doing shenanigans like this guy, what do you think?
I found that the initial part of the stroke felt not too bad. It was almost a little stiff, so you're getting a little bit of deflection on the smaller roots and rocks that you can start to feel a little bit of a skatey feeling. But then as I get through the stroke, it actually felt like it got softer and I just started to really bottom out on little steps like this. I was finding that it would just push straight through and get a really good bottom out feeling.
But then again, the price tag kind of reflects on the quality of the suspension. But overall, for such a not cheap, affordable bike, I think the suspension is pretty good.
And let's be real, Laurie, if you are a rider that's going to push the limits on any motorcycle, you're most likely going to do some suspension work, whether that's different springs, oil, valving, or just a whole different suspension setup.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I liked personally and I think is great for, again, adventure, overland travelers. The height of the windscreen, nice, lots of wind protection. But for you,
I found as soon as I was going over rocks or going up any steep hills, any little jumps where the bike is going to come up and then go back down again, that thing was almost like a guillotine. Even getting over the front of the bike to try to keep that front end planted in corners, my chin was almost touching that windscreen, which for me feels like a guillotine.
Now, one thing that's, I think, so important to talk about is the power and the power delivery. So from your perspective, how was it?
I found that the bike was very weak off the bottom end. Once you start to get it into the mid-range and the higher revs, it wasn't terrible. For a smaller bike, it's definitely a little less power than what I would like to have, but right off the bottom, it really doesn't have much. And also, it was flaming out a lot. So if you're not slipping that power into the clutch just to do a basic turn, it was stalling a lot for me.
Yeah, same here. Low end, I thought I was pretty weak and hesitated a lot. Again, you start getting into the mid, it has power. You can wheelie it, right? But it takes a lot of clutch.
You have to really work it to get the front end off the ground, and then to hold it there, you can't just rely on the power, that's for sure.
Now, one positive about that is, especially for younger or new riders, the bike is perfect because it doesn't really intimidate in the lower range. So if you're new, if you're getting into it, or if you're just like somebody who's a bit older and you're not rowdy, the bike actually may be just perfect. Now, balance, because this bike is actually a tad bit taller, about 6 centimeters or 2 inches taller than the old 390 Adventure R, the previous generation. And I even find it a bit taller. So it's important to understand how well it can be balanced, or how well does it balance.
I found a static balance with this bike, especially with the weight of it being relatively light for an adventure bike. I didn't have any issues there. One thing that I did find was that there's not a lot of weight on that front end. So in corners, I was feeling the front end skating around a little bit. Again, if you're just out there putzing around, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But as soon as you start to try to push into corners, you might start to notice that a little bit. That being said, this is the stock OEM tires, which they need to go.
We're upgrading it to Motors. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, Sam, for your input and for abusing this little beast for a little bit. We're going to be back with more. We're going to be putting on our armor, crash bar, skid plate, and some other products from Mountain Motortech, which we're working on right now. And this bike is going to see a lot more action. Hopefully, we can tune it a little bit to make it a bit stronger for you.
Get a little bit more power out of that bottom end. I'm thinking a pipe, maybe an ECU, even potentially a flywheel weight. I've never seen that on an adventure bike, but something I've seen on a lot of dirt bikes, which I think that would help.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Sam. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more. Cheers.